Is Wuthering Waves going to crash and burn due to its poor marketing structure, or is it just something that a lot of people are talking about on the timeline and in YouTube videos? Today I wanted to talk about that because I've seen it pretty much everywhere. Everybody's saying that Kuro Games is fumbling the bag when it comes to the way that they're handling their marketing. And I wanted to talk about this because a lot of people are really kind of just comparing it to the way that they handled PGR Global, and I feel like it's a little disingenuous unless you were kind of there, which I was. I was there for PGR Global day one, and I covered it pretty exclusively, and I covered it like pretty much the main game on my channel, and it helped grow quite a bit, but there's a lot of growing pains with just Kuro in my channel as well, and one of those was marketing. So kind of to give you a backstory, PGR, I swear it won't take too long and it'll make sense for Wuthering Waves, is Punisher Graven was Kuro Games' first game, right? So it did really well on CN, took about 1.5 to 2 years before they were like, hey, let's roll this out and go globally, and that's exactly what they did. Now what they kind of did with that was, unfortunately, they were really hoping that the CN market would kind of shift over or kind of help accelerate basically the global market, and they wouldn't have to do much marketing, right? So they didn't do too much marketing. They had a couple of PVs that they kind of had previously for the CN version, because remember, it's about 1.5 to 2 years back, so they had all these trailers kind of lined up for all the different events and stuff like that. All they do is slap a sub on it, you know, give it in your English and give it into whatever language, and then you could understand it with the subtitles, right? So it wasn't really like designed to be marketed towards any particular audience other than the CN market that was already being, you know, had seen those a couple of years ago. Now the issue was that on top of that, they were hoping that you'd be able to get hyped from the CN market, but that wasn't going to happen because 1.5 to 2 years of kind of gap there, you're not going to get excited for anything that's happening on CN because it's so far away from what's happening with your current game right now in global. And the other issue is anything that was quality of life that CN had currently got, you had to go through the growing pains that CN got, right? So there's a lot of issues where there was stuff that had been fixed and it didn't make sense for them to put that bug in the global version of the game, but they did anyway because CN had to go through that. So they would have a big uproar if global didn't have to go through that issue. So it became kind of a big thing, but a lot of CCs started dropping like flies and just not really wanting to play the game because they had to make a decision on the marketing for, you know, Kuro Games. They were kind of just like, hey, I'm not going to market your game for you. You know, I'll help and I'll be kind of a pillar in the community space and I'll kind of help people out, but I'm not going to sit here and market. I'm not going to sit here and go to all these forums and beg people to come play the game, because for people to grow as a creator, you kind of want the game to grow, right? You want new people, you want stuff to be able to sub to you and all that different things. And if the company isn't making the marketing effort, then why should you? So a lot of people kind of dropped, and we voiced our concerns to Kuro about basically, hey, we need more marketing. We need to kind of shift it. And at that point in time, there wasn't much they could do. They had a timing structure that they had to follow for CN, and they weren't willing to budge from that or cater it to the global market. And it really did end up hurting PGR, even though it was a very fun game, super free to play friendly, and has some of the best combat in a game that I've really ever seen. It just wasn't able to capture anything because of the poor marketing, and it's found its niche and it's found its audience of a lot of dedicated loving fans, but unfortunately it could have been a little bit bigger had they marketed differently. So all of that to say, though, with Wuthering Waves, as a person who saw what had happened with PGR, they are not under the same restrictions that they had placed themselves on like they did in PGR. They had to follow a schedule because they kind of, you know, were gonna have an outcry from the CN community if they changed anything from the global side of PGR. Now Wuthering Waves is going to come out everywhere at the same time, simultaneous, and so they don't have that kind of like, you know, jail cage that they put on themselves with PGR, and so they've been able to market it and do a lot of different things. They've been able to have different languages for the PVs. They've been able to kind of have different you know, live streams and stuff like that, and everybody feels like they're part of the same community, which makes it 10 times easier to market to, because everybody feels like we're together and we're all being marketed to at the same time. There's no different people being marketed to, and they're giving, you know, some love to CN and not too much to global or whatever, so nobody has to fight over it. Everybody's getting the same talks, everybody's getting the same dev stuff, and I really feel like with them being so transparent, that is a way of marketing that we have not seen from a lot of gacha devs. But outside of that, because that's obviously just a personal thing, I do feel like just the fact from announcement to where we're at now, they have done a ton of marketing. So obviously from announcement to first CBT, they didn't do too much, but CBT 1, they had a lot of creators on there that had them going for a prize pool, and so people were more inclined to, you know, make videos because they were going to get paid for a certain amount of views and all that different stuff. And then CBT 2, they really hit it home with the fact that they were paying Genshin and Honkai Star Rail people, or kind of just Hoyoverse people, to jump on here with a large fan base to play a game. And I didn't even remember to mention in CBT 1, they were also paying people like Nanogenics, who's huge in the Dokkan community, Afro Senju, which is huge in the anime community. They were paying them as well to play for some of the different sponsor stuff. So now they only did like one of those for those two guys, but it was pretty nice to see. And then CBT 2, obviously, like I just mentioned, they paid a bunch of Hoyoverse people to come over, and like it or not, it was a marketing strategy. They wanted to get a lot of people in front of a camera to talk about the game, give away keys and stuff like that. And I don't think they paid them to have like a positive response, because honestly, it felt like a lot of people are being pretty genuine with some of the criticisms, and I really respect Kuro for doing that, because they could have paid a little extra money and be like, hey, here's some talking points, don't be too harsh on our game, because there are games who do that. Believe it or not, as a creator, I tell you right now, now, there are things where people will try to kind of get you to say more positive things. They don't restrict everything you say. They're kind of like, hey, talk about it positively. So obviously with Hero Games, they were able to kind of say whatever they want, and that did really well with marketing. And this is kind of the big issue now, is people think that they kind of just tapered off. They're like, okay, whatever, we spent all of our money, we're not going to market, and we're going to have a May release. Hopefully everybody just comes and plays our game. The reason I have an issue with that claim is because if you look on the Reddit, if you look on Twitter, there are numerous people, including myself, who have talked about the ads they've been getting. I've personally gotten stuff on TikTok and Instagram mostly. I've seen a couple of YouTube ones and a couple of Twitter ones, but mostly I see them on TikTok and Instagram. And honestly, bro, I've seen a lot of gotcha marketing stuff, and they're not that bad. They're a little cringy in some of the different parts, but they're not nearly as bad as some of the stuff we've seen before. But yeah, I've seen them. I've seen quite a lot. I've seen people on Twitter talking about them. There's constantly all these CCs talking about all the different ads they're getting. There's community members talking about stuff as well, and they're kind of pushing this game. And I have receipts to kind of show you guys on why I think that they're pushing this. So on the 21st, we had 18.2 million pre-registration. So obviously we're trying to get to 30 million for the rewards. Now, I've never seen a game miss that, but if you look at it on the 21st, 18.2 mil, right? And then whenever we go all the way up on my Twitter here, we got the 24th, we hit 20 mil. Okay. So that's like what, 1.8, 1.7 million. And then on the 24th, and then we go about 15 hours later. So on the 27th, on the 26th, we got to 21.3 mil. So we're averaging about like what, anywhere between 600K to 800K a day in pre-registration. And I feel like that's a pretty good number. I mean, you look at it, it's like, well, we have like 20, I don't know, I'm not good at math, bro. Like 20-ish days or something like that until we get to, you know, release, and we have 30 million to go, and we're at 21.3. So we have about like 8 point whatever. And if you're on track for, you know, that's like 10 days, you have to hit 800K to get to that point. So we're obviously going to pass that if we go with the same structure. And that's not even saying like, because of some of the PVs and stuff like that. I've seen people talking about Encore and how that PV didn't do very well for creators, and there's just not much hype for it. Encore, unfortunately, as cute as she is and as fun as she is not one of the characters that people are the most hyped for. I feel like people kind of don't understand because it's like, she's cute, but she's no Yin Lin, right? She's no Jian. Like, those are the PVs and story stuff that people are really wanting to see. If we drop one of those, which I'm sure they will in like the last like 2 weeks, they're definitely going to push marketing to an extreme in the last like 2 weeks of the game, right? So obviously whenever we get those trailers, you will see the numbers, right? Because we have seen that Hero Games and Wuthering Waves can get numbers to get like 6 million on their CB22 announcement, and just to get all these millions of views so quickly. I know a lot of people say, yeah, well, it's because they ran ads or they ran the promo. So they marketed, right? Okay, so they marketed it, and obviously, yes, it does translate to having a little bit of boosted views and a little bit of inflamed kind of stats and statistics and stuff like that, but it's part of marketing. So they're paying to market it, right? So obviously they're putting it in front of people's eyes, and I just don't feel like it's not being marketed, right? So as a person who came from PGR Global, it's just like a 180 for me. I feel like they're just being really transparent. Obviously they don't have an infinite budget, so it's really hard for them just to like stack ads against everybody and just throw money at everything. They're obviously trying to find a balance of what's going steady and not trying to shove stuff in your face, right? Because I've seen a lot of people talk about AFK Journey and like, oh my god, their ads are everywhere. Okay, first off, that game's out, right? So obviously they're shoving ads down your throat, and I kind of like the steady race type of thing because it gives you a nice level of hype. I don't really like being shoved ads like continuously. It kind of makes me kind of turned off to a game. That's a personal preference, so I won't really say too much about that. But yeah, I just don't feel like it's in a spot where they're doing really bad. Like, everybody's doom posting the fact that it's not going to be hype enough and all this different stuff. I feel like they're playing steady and they're doing a lot of stuff. They're going to ramp up marketing, and it just seems very disingenuous, like as if people don't know how gacha games work and how marketing works, because like that's just the way it is. Why spend all your money right before, like, it's kind of like a marathon, right? You're wanting to, you know, truck it the whole entire time. If you just sprint from the beginning, you're not going to get very far. All the hype will fade out, and if you do it kind of like in the middle, you know, you're going to get tired there. So you just kind of want to pace yourself until you're at the very end, and then once you're to the very end, you can exert yourself a little bit more, because at that point, you know, you're at the home stretch. Anything you exert is just going to go into the final product, and then you'll be good to go. So that's just kind of my take on it, just because I've seen a lot of people talking about it. I kind of want to give my 2 cents.